Hey, what's up, Life Designers? Welcome to Intentional Tuesdays. This week is going to be actually broken up into a two-part series. We're going to cover half of it this week, and then part two, we will do a follow-up next week. And the topic for the conversation this week is how to skillfully deal with a situation when we are offended by someone else. How do we skillfully deal with being offended? When it comes to being offended, there really are only two basic choices. We can either choose to engage the offending party in a direct way. And then the second choice, when confronted with something that is insulting or offensive to us, is to not engage. And how do we skillfully go about not engaging in some kind of a offensive conflict type situation? So the path of choosing to not engage is the topic for this week's conversation. So if that sounds interesting to you, then stick with us because we are going to jump right in. So I think it's interesting to look at an offensive situation where someone offends us or insults us. I think it is interesting to look at that from a fight or flight response perspective. So again, you have two choices. Do I engage? So the whole engagement, that would really be your fight response. You know, you've been affronted by this other individual, and you choose to actually confront it head on through direct engagement. That is the classic fight response. And the choice to not engage, if you really look closely, that really is a form of a flight response. Now, what makes it really interesting, in my opinion, is even if you choose a flight response, chances are you are doing it with a lot of fight energy. So I want you to just remember a time when you felt offended. Either maybe it was a post on Facebook, or maybe it was a comment that one of your friends or colleagues made that really offended you. What types of emotions did that generate? Chances are it generated something along the lines of anger or resentment. Now, anger and resentment are classic fight energies. You know, when you feel angry or you feel, a deep sense of resentment, you have this really high energy, I want to go and smash something type of response, which is obviously a fight response. And yet we're going to be taking that anger and resentment, and we're going to be fleeing. We are going to be retreating from the conflict. And that, I think, is where we get ourselves into trouble. Because those energies have to get out of our body somehow, some way. How does that energy ever get out of our system? One of the ways is that perhaps we kind of direct it toward the relationship, but we do it in a more passive aggressive kind of a way. So maybe we start to scheme about how we are going to undermine and how we are going to extract revenge on the counterparty, but we're going to do it in a very passive way. That's one way we get our fight energy out. Another way that I think is quite common is we turn to our colleagues and our friends, our trusted advisors, and we complain. Maybe we go on Facebook and we post something, a real, rant on Facebook. And that feels helpful, and it may even feel good. It may feel a little bit productive, but of course we all know that it's not. We're not doing anything at all to repair the damage of that relationship. Really, all we're doing, in a sense, is really just kicking the can down the road, because the reality is that anger and that resentment, that doesn't actually get out of your body unless you confront the other person. The only way to get that anger and resentment out is by actually having the fight, if you will, having the confrontation. Now, hopefully, if you do that, it's a skillful confrontation, but that's the way to get the anger out of your body. So if you think about how long it lasts, that energy will last in your body, forever. I mean, essentially it will last forever until you have the opportunity to fully have that fight. In addition to the fact that it doesn't advance the relationship, it doesn't repair the relationship at all, that retreat response is really unskillful, because it's really just going to eat away at you, and it's going to really fester over time. So now, what is a more skillful response? Sometimes you will actually want to choose the flight response. You will choose to not engage. But we know that the fight energies, anger and resentment, are not going to help us. What then is the alternative? So I have one suggestion that is an energetic, I guess, alternative if you think about it that way, and that is sadness. And instead of anger and resentment, my proposal is that you try to cultivate a feeling of sadness. There's a few things that I like about sadness in favor of the alternative, which is anger and resentment. So for one, I do like the fact that sadness is completely appropriate for the situation because we were hurt. We were offended by the transgression, and that offense has actually caused us to be hurt. You know, there was a relationship that we had and we thought we knew what that relationship was about. Perhaps we trusted that person very deeply, and now we are feeling violated in that sense. That hurts. So something has been lost. Something that presumably was at least somewhat important to us has been lost. So sadness is a completely appropriate emotional response to the situation. So I like that aspect of it. The other thing that I like about sadness is that sadness offers a tremendous benefit over anger and resentment in the sense that sadness has a natural way of getting out of our bodies. We are much more able to process sadness than we are anger and resentment because the process of sadness, the processing is basically feeling the sadness completely, allowing the sadness to impact you. That's the way our bodies deal with sadness. Whereas anger and resentment, the only way to deal with that is with the actual fight. So our bodies have a much more naturally congruent way of dealing with the sadness energy. The challenge with sadness energy and choosing sadness as your response is our egos do not want us to choose sadness. We were just offended. We were just insulted by somebody else, and you're telling me I'm supposed to be sad? That feels like weakness. That feels like I would be surrendering my dignity by just choosing such a passive emotion, in sadness. I would argue that sadness is actually the more courageous move because in order to allow sadness to happen, and in order to allow that to be our emotional choice, we really have to have a high degree of confidence in ourselves. We really have to have confidence in our resiliency, our ability to get over the transgression, and we have to be the bigger person. So in a way, in every way, I think, sadness is actually the more courageous move. But it also has the massive benefit of being able to process it in a congruent and helpful way. And I think you'll process that sadness a lot quicker than you will the anger and the resentment. You will get over the situation a lot quicker, and you will be less likely to do long-term damage to the relationship. You'll be more open down the road if there ever becomes an opportunity, or if you ever choose to engage the other party. You'll be in a much better position for not having done any damage to the relationship more than has already occurred. So that is my recommendation for how to deal with the transgressions and the feelings of being offended. So that's it for this week's Intentional Tuesdays. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got a lot out of it. As always, I appreciate your time and your attention. I look forward to our paths crossing again. I do want to give a quick update on the release of my book. Thank you to everybody who purchased the book. If you haven't, definitely I highly recommend you check it out. If you have purchased the book and you're enjoying it, you're reading it, please write a review on Amazon. That is probably the biggest thing that you can do to help my cause. Even if it's only a 4-star review, that is super, super helpful, and I would really appreciate you taking the time to do that. If you want to go lower than 4 stars, then maybe keep that to yourself. But no, in all seriousness, I do appreciate all of your support. It's really heartwarming to see everybody being so supportive of my work, and I really do appreciate it. So thank you so much for that. And with that, I will give you the rest of your week back, and look forward to catching up next week. Take care.